The war in West Asia has a new epicenter, one of the world's most critical oil choke points, the Strait of Hormuz. The US and Iran have been trading threats over its control. And now the tussle seems to have moved into a new phase. A maritime security agency reported that 2 container ships were hit off the coast of the UAE. The United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations said an unknown projectile hit a cargo ship in the Strait of Hormuz, causing a fire and forcing the crew to evacuate. The agency later reported an attack on another ship, and this time 50 nautical miles northwest of Dubai. Nearly 20% of the world's oil passes through its narrow waterway that lies between Iran on one side, Oman and United Arab Emirates on the other. About 25% of global seaborne oil trade depends on it, as nearly 20 million barrels of oil pass through Hormuz on a usual day. But the war in West Asia threatens to choke this flow, as it already has. Iran has issued a stark warning, saying that it will not allow ships linked to the United States or its allies to safely pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Reports claim that Iran has the capability to target vessels with missiles, drones, and, in the latest, sea mines if the conflict escalates further. CNN recently reported that Iran has already started laying mines in the strait. Now, the US president said that he did not have such reports, but still issued a warning to Iran. And then just minutes after this, minutes after this warning, the United States military said that it had struck 16 Iranian vessels suspected of laying mines in the area, signaling that Washington is prepared to use force to keep the shipping lane open. Now, while Iran's mine stock isn't publicly known, reports suggest over the years Iran has stockpiled roughly 2,000 to about 6,000 naval mines, largely produced either by themselves or by China and Russia. With the US claiming to have destroyed 16 mine layers, that still leaves Iran with well over 80% of its reported stockpile. But confusion soon erupted after a dramatic claim from Chris Wright, the US Energy Secretary. In a social media post, Wright said the US Navy had successfully escorted an oil tanker through the Strait of Hormuz. The announcement briefly shook global energy markets, but within minutes that post was taken down. It was deleted. And soon after, the White House clarified that the claim was incorrect.
Can you explain why the Energy Secretary posted and then appeared to have deleted a post on X saying that the U.S. Navy escorted an oil tanker through the Strait of Hormuz?
Yes, I was made aware of this post. I haven't had a chance to talk to the Energy Secretary about it directly. However, I know the post was taken down pretty quickly, and I can confirm that the U.S. Navy has not escorted a tanker or a vessel at this time, though, of course, that's an option the President has said he will absolutely utilize if and when necessary at the appropriate time.
Now, the contradiction has only deepened the uncertainty over the security of the waterway. Iran seized on the confusion. Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Baghir Ghalibaf, he mocked the American claim online, writing an oil tanker crossed the Strait of Hormuz, escorted by US Navy ships, ? Maybe on PlayStation. Well, the US has been claiming that it will ensure the free flow of energy through the strait. Iran says that it can shut the passage whenever it chooses. So as the war intensifies, can President Donald Trump actually control the Strait of Hormuz? All right, to discuss this further, I'm now being joined by Anne Elizabeth Moutet, columnist, The London Telegraph, and specializes in international affairs, joining us from Paris. Ms. Moutet, thank you so much for making time. Always a pleasure speaking with you. Coming to our point of discussion, it's the new epicenter of the war, Strait of Hormuz. Can US control this strait, bearing the immense economic, financial, and military costs that it will entail?
If America cannot hold the Straits of Hormuz, nobody can, because it is still the strongest and most trained military in the world. So I suspect they can, because they've been planning for this very obviously for a long time. One of the hotspots of this, and one of the biggest stakes in this war, is the free flow of passage through the Straits of Hormuz. I might add that Iran proxies like the Houthis and others have been constantly bombing the Arabian Sea and the Straits, so that the Straits of Hormuz very often have not been usable anyway. For instance, we now know that most commercial shipping has to go around the continent of Africa if it comes, say, from China all the way to Europe, because insurers will not insure them. It's not new that the Straits of Hormuz have been used as a cat's paw by the Iranian government, even though they're not the only ones controlling them. So that is a situation that predates the beginning of this war. It's, of course, become much more acute with this war, but it is something that was to be expected. And I think America has started this war partly to bring sort of more relaxed and capable military capacity in opening this and making world commerce and world energy transport easier. And that is also the aim that the French President Emmanuel Macron, who sent a flotilla of 20 warships and the Charles de Gaulle nuclear aircraft carrier to the region yesterday. Wednesday, but they arrived yesterday. Again, one of the aims that Emmanuel Macron said, and he says he doesn't want to join the war, but he said that one of the missions of the French fleet is to make it possible to reopen and to make navigation possible through the Straits of Hormuz.
Ms. Mute, now the Strait of Hormuz. There was initially in the objectives, it was a regime change for the US, and that would have perhaps exacted the victory that they were looking for. First day of the war, when US starts it, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, he's eliminated, he's assassinated. Soon after, in less than a week or maybe in 8 to 9 days, they already announced the next supreme leader, whom we've yet to see in public. But at this point, regime change does not seem to be the option. They're not even mentioning this as part of their objectives. Do you feel the Strait of Hormuz now is the deciding factor to have that symbolic win in this war, as regime change does not seem possible?
I would not agree with you that regime change is not possible. I would say, and the word regime change was carefully not used in America, although it was used by the government. It was not. It was used by all commenters, usually to compare this with the war in Iraq in 2003, even though Iraq and Iran are such different countries. In so many ways. I mean, Iraq was created in 1921. Iran is a country that got 5,000 years of history and individuality, a different language from all its neighbors, etc. So it's really, that's not the, you can have several goals in a war. That was one of the goals. Regime change, as stated by President Trump, but President Trump loves to have sort of plausible deniability and the fog of war over everything he does, and I think it's calculated. I don't think it's a mistake. So it's not supposed to be an aim. It's supposed to be the Iranians taking over, having the regime having been decapitated. And to be honest, I mean, it's not just two ayatollahs. And we are now told that the son of Khamenei, who's supposed to be the new, Mujtaba Khamenei, is himself in bad shape and has not appeared because he's not physically capable of even speaking. But it's not just that. It's right now we're closing 100 of important leaders of the regime, disorganization of their means. That makes the possibility of regime change from the grassroots, which is always much better, from the Iranians, that makes it possible.
Ms. Mute, you had spoken about the military might for the US, and 100% they have that might. Iran they've dealt a good amount of damage to Iran, which is being done on a daily basis, on an hourly basis at this point, regardless of the fact that Iran has not capitulated yet. But then there are these reports that suggest that they are now deploying a third aircraft carrier to the region, the George W. Bush. And also they're moving their air defense batteries from South Korea, bringing them all the way to regions which can protect perhaps the GCC nations, or that is information that was not privy to, but they're moving them out of that region to deploy in the West Asian region. And there are also reports where they've not negated having boots on ground. Does that suggest that perhaps the US underestimated how far Iran can take this? Because just yesterday, or perhaps the day before that, US President said that they had a far more number of missiles than we had imagined.
It is entirely possible, but what the new deployment shows is that America, I will use a Trumpian expression, America means business in this war. They do not want to lose it, and they have the means to win it, I think. I think it's very important that once you start, you've got to be able to finish the job. Again, this is, we're talking about a government that slaughtered between 30 and 50,000 of its citizens within 2.5 weeks, a month and a half ago. This is a government that has been waging constant war against America, against Europe, with terrorism, with hostage taking, with bombs. And it's not as if they were completely peaceful, and the Americans just decided that they would have a war because why not? As a French woman, I remember the day in 1983 when 221 Marines were bombed and killed in Beirut in a building, and 58 French paratroopers were bombed and killed in another building in Beirut, and all of this had been led by Hezbollah, which is an Iranian proxy. They have been sort of waging a hybrid war, but violent war in all sorts of places, from West Africa to Asia. And the idea that Iran is peaceful and this is a war that wants to please President Trump, I don't think President Trump wanted that war, but he came to the realization that the situation was such that it was necessary to have it. And once he goes into this, he doesn't want to lose it.
Understand your point. I hear your point, Ms. Mute. But when the US president says that we had a good feeling that they were going to attack first, it kind of takes away from the credibility of why they attacked first. The negotiations were on, but nothing takes away from the attacks that Iran has carried out in the past. And of course, yes, all the Iran-backed militias have also carried out it since 2023. We'll leave it there for now. Thank you so much for joining me. That was Elizabeth and Mute joining us from Paris.